Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
The center just came up with 5 tranches of what it called as stimulus package. Some of it was stimulus, some of it was reform, and a lot of it was controversial. So we will look at one particular aspect of it, which is quite controversial, but which in my view has to be understood better. And before I get into that, let me tell you about a phenomenon in politics. Politics in democracies now is very polarized. It's so polarized that hydroxychloroquine is polarized, that coronavirus is polarized, right? Every issue now gets polarized. So if that gets polarized, why not economics? In fact, in the American debate and media, there is an expression, a term that emerged in the wake of Donald Trump's rise called Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, very familiar in India, but Trump derangement syndrome. This was coined first by columnist and psychologist Charles Krauthammer. He had originally coined this for George Bush Jr. in 2003. So then it was called Bush derangement syndrome. And what it is he defined it himself. It is the acute onset of paranoia in otherwise normal people in reaction to policies, the presidency, nay, the very existence of George Bush. And later, when Trump came, he just replaced George Bush with Donald Trump. Fareed Zakaria also later wrote an article in the Washington Post, which you will see, where he said liberals have to get over Trump derangement syndrome. And he said, he defined it as hatred of President Trump so intense that it impairs people's judgment. Now, this has become a bit of a joke also. Everything becomes a popular culture phenomenon. So, in America now, you have a whole range of Trump derangement syndrome t-shirts, both making fun of it and both in support of Donald Trump, taking it seriously. So you can see some of those on our screen. Why did we swing from Modi government's stimulus measures / reform to Trump derangement syndrome? Because in polarized politics, we were illustrating the point that in polarized politics, these derangement syndromes are quite common. So just as there is a TDS or Trump derangement syndrome in America, which used to be BDS, Bush derangement syndrome, now there is an MDS in India, which is Modi derangement syndrome. Now, I have to be careful saying this because the moment I say this, I will have a big pushback saying, oh, Shekhar Gupta, you are now sold out to Narendra Modi, you are a chamcha of Narendra Modi. So, first of all, I'm used to my first editor, Thomas Mathai, in a tiny magazine called Democratic World, used to say the left thinks we are right, the right thinks we are left, so we must be doing something right. So, I believe in looking at the facts. Now, even people you might dislike, you might vote against, not everything they will do can be wrong. Similarly, if there are people you vote for, you like them, love them, adore them, whatever, you are their fans, not everything they do can be right. The job of us journalists is to let you know, is to tell you honestly what we think is right and what we think is wrong, and it is independent of, should be independent of our voting preferences because all of us vote. With that long qualification, I am talking about only one aspect of this 5-tranche package. That is this very interesting and controversial idea of letting the states borrow more than their current existing limit. The current existing limit for the states to borrow from the center, this is besides their share of the central revenues and things, this is borrowing, udhar. That is so until now limited to 3% of the state's GDP, or what is called as GSDP. S for state here, gross state domestic product. So 3% of that every year, the equivalent of 3%, that state can borrow from the center. Obviously to shore up its finances, to fill its deficit, etc. But remember, when somebody lends you money, that somebody is also expecting the money to be paid back. Now, this happens very often in India that states think, "Arey, apni sarkar hai," center thinks, "Arey, us state mein to apni sarkar hai, apni party ki hai," so don't bother them. So this then carries on. So any money that's borrowed sometimes is returned, sometimes is not returned. States carry on with overdrafts. So all kinds of tamasha takes place. So Modi government is now offering more money to the states to borrow. So they are saying in this stimulus package that any state, instead of 3% of its GSDP, can borrow up to 5% of its GSDP. But if it carries out the following reforms, I will list the reforms, but I have to give you an idea of how much does it matter, because that is cut the clutter. You might say 3% to 5% of GSDP. How does it matter? So I'll tell you. If all states in India borrow, instead of 3% of their GSDP, 5% of their GSDP, then an additional amount of 4,28,000 crore rupees, that is rupees 4.28 trillion, becomes available to these states. That's a lot of money. Look at a state like Bihar, which is so short of revenues. It has very little revenues, and whatever revenues they had, essentially that used to come from liquor, they wiped out of sheer populism, that I am banning, I am imposing prohibition. So my state will be the most chaste state in the world after Saudi Arabia. It isn't. People drink in Bihar as much as they drink in Gujarat. It's just that liquor is now smuggled and you are transferring your own revenues to your neighboring states. In Gujarat state to Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Maharashtra, and in the case of Bihar to Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, etc., etc. That's said, what would Bihar's total revenue from liquor be if Bihar had not imposed prohibition and liquor was its largest source of revenue? It would be about 4,000 crores, 4,500 crores, thereabouts, because it was about 3,500 crores or maybe 3,400 crores in 2016-17, after which it was banned. Even a state like Bihar, with a very poor GSDP, with a very poor per capita income, terrible, it's a national embarrassment. Even a state like Bihar can now borrow another 12,000, in fact 12,992 crore, which means almost 13,000 crores if this goes up from 3% to 5%. This is very important. Now that's why I think a story that my colleagues Ramya Nair and Maushami Das Gupta have done on the print this morning, of which I'm giving you a link. Please read that. That story tells you in detail the conditions that the centers has put, which these states have to fulfill to be able to borrow this money. It's not between brother and chota bhai, bada bhai, come borrow. My favorite writer, P.J. O'Rourke, once wrote a beautiful piece in a collection called Eat the Rich, where he described the various instruments and bonds and ratings, everything that happens in financial markets and the economy. And he was describing the ratings of different bonds. And he said, triple B negative, what does that rating mean? It means like lending money to your younger brother. So between the state and the centers, there's been that kind of psychology. Bada bhai chote bhai ko de raha hai. But it can't work like that, because center also can't bring money. Center doesn't have an unlimited source of money. So when you lend money to anybody, even a bank either takes a collateral or sets up conditions, or takes a collateral and sets up conditions. Even if a global multinational lending agency gives you money, IMF, World Bank, ADB, etc., 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 they also set up yardsticks, conditions. In the case of IMF, these have got maligned as conditionalities. But the fact is that at this point, 100 countries are at the IMF asking for money. That's what Geeta Gopinath said and off the cuff to me 3 weeks back. Nevertheless, what are the conditions that the center has put? Now, immediately, because this came out, there's been a pushback from many states. Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, West Bengal, and others. I call these the usual suspect states. And I will tell you why. Because what are these conditionalities? Also, then a lot of the critics of Modi government, there's a lot of them, on social media, mainstream media, commentariat, everywhere was saying, see Modi government, Even to give money to the states, they are putting conditions. They are acting like the IMF. But read the fine print. In fact, the fine print is not so difficult to find. Just read Ramya and Maushami's story on the print.in. What are the 4 or 4.5 conditions that the center wants you to fulfill? These 4.5 conditions are: number one, you can give free power to the farmers, no problem, because states are giving free power to the farmers. But you will give it through direct benefit transfer. What that means is the farmer will first pay for the power at a concessional price or whatever price. The farmer will pay for the power, and that amount will then be reimbursed by you in the farmer's account through direct benefit transfer. The idea being that farmer also gets a sense then that this costs money. This doesn't come for free. And second, it's a cash flow issue, because you know that once first you have to pay and then the money comes in. So it brings in a sense of responsibility. You don't think power is free. You can keep your tubewell on 24/7. जब power आएगी तब चलेगा, नहीं आएगी तो नहीं चलेगा, या उसमें से चोरी करेगा मेरा पड़ोसी तो मैं परवाह नहीं करूँगा, because so what? Ultimately I am paying nothing. In this case, because you know that you will have to first deposit the money, it brings in discipline. Number two, Aadhaar has to seed every ration card. Some states have done it, about a dozen states have done it, others haven't done it. Because once you seed ration cards with Aadhaar, then you can move towards a universal ration card, one country, one ration card. That scheme's been there for a long time, from UPS times, but it's not been done in UPS times because UPA lost nerve in its second term. And now, because too many state governments don't want it, also, it's only in a crisis like this that complicated. This is not a difficult decision, it's a complicated decision because it's an administrative thing to do, one more burden. And bureaucracies don't like more to do, obviously, but this is a reform. There is no harm at all in seeding ration cards with Aadhaar numbers, and putting this reform seeks that you put point of sale, electronic point of sales machines at each PDS outlet. What that means is, once you take this ration card and you take a certain amount of your quota, then maybe someone else from your family who's working in a distant city, like a migrant laborer, can withdraw his or her share of the rations wherever he or she is. So it doesn't mean the problem that you have right now, that the family gets the rations there, but the person who's working in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Kolkata is not getting it, will then go away. Or even if the family is split, even if the family is in 3 or 4 places, because increasingly people are more mobile. So that is the second reform. The third is user charges, that is water and sanitation. Now what happens is, most of our states don't charge anybody for water. And most of the states and cities do not charge for sanitation, or even if they do, it's very little, or they rarely collect what is due to them. So once again, the center is saying, you increase your user charges, at least increase your collections. You meet this yardstick, all this adds up to your points to get 3% borrowing to 5% borrowing. And the next is that you improve your ease of doing business. So key things: 1, free power; 2, Aadhaar seeding of ration cards and point of sales machines at ration shops; 3, increase property tax. Once again, it doesn't mean that you have to property taxes as in tax rates. You can do it, in fact, it's very clear, you can do it by increasing the base price that you reckon, or that the ready reckoners have for property, because some of these were fixed a long time back, and said 8%, 10%, 3%, 4% of that means nothing. That in fact leads to, it facilitates cash trading in property. So up your floor prices for property to reflect the realities of the market. If the realities of the market are 30,000 rupees a square foot, then your ready reckoner should not be saying 10,000 rupees a square foot and put 8% on that. In fact, if you put 30,000 as your base price and charge 4% of that, you will get more money. So get better compliance, bring your base prices on ready reckoners to realistic levels. And fourth, as I said, is user charges for water and sanitation. 4.5 is improving ease of doing business. Now, if you do it all right, it's been done quite scientifically. If you fulfill one of these four conditions, for fulfilling each of these four conditions, you can go up by 0.25%. So it's not an all or none phenomenon. You can decide, okay, this year I will only fulfill my reform condition on free power by transferring it on DBT. So you can borrow 0.25 percentage points more. Or if you have two, okay, I will do property tax also, then you can borrow 0.5 percentage points, not 5.5% of 3%, 3 to 3.5% more. So if you fulfill all four conditions, then you can borrow 1%, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, 0.25. And then if you fulfill all the conditions, then you get a bonus of 0.5%. And then you have ease of doing business, etc., etc. That also says the kind of things you have to do with ease of doing business. It says that you have to amend the Shops and Establishment Act. Under Shops and Establishment Act, you have to make licenses and approvals automatic on the web. Fees have to be paid automatically online. And if you carry out inspections of shops and establishments, those inspection reports have to be put online to bring in transparency. That I don't see why anybody should complain about it. That information has to be uploaded. Anybody who's complaining about it knows that one ATM is going to be shut, because this is where the inspectors and the Inspector Raj still hassles Indian business people, shopkeepers, traders at the lowest level. So if you look at all of this, then you will figure that really it is not as if the states are being asked to miss a meal a day or do something or deny the poor Manrega or any such thing. These are all governance reforms. But just because these have come in right now from a government or from a political leadership which is polarizing in a very polarized environment, it is not correct. I mean, you can still oppose it, but all I am saying is these are the facts. When you look at these facts, then unless you also are part of a derangement syndrome, then you might be able to look at it more in a more healthy manner. And before I conclude, I will tell you a little story. Many years ago, this is when Dr. Manmohan Singh had ceased to be finance minister. Narasimha Rao's government had gone. On a flight from Bombay to Delhi, I saw him on the flight, and as I usually do, using my reporter's tricks, I sat in front of him on an Indian Airlines flight on my knees and struck up conversation with him. And I said, what is the future of India's economy, etc., etc. So he spoke one line which stayed in my mind. He said, Shekhar, unless this country learns to pay, or the politicians of this country learn to demand that citizens pay at least a minimum charge for the services and utilities and facilities that the government provides to them, there will be no future for India. I think a lot of these reforms were brought out by the UPA. This is a step in the same direction, and it's a welcome step. Everything that comes from a political formulation doesn't have to be opposed, at least in my view, because you don't like the political formulation. In fact, talking about putting conditions, UPA itself had come up with a brilliant plan called JNN URM, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, under which states were given money, large dollops of money, to invest in their cities for specific projects in return for carrying out certain reforms. And one of those reforms, which was quite controversial but a very good reform, was the abolition of the Urban Land Ceiling Act, ULCRA. The center had repealed the Central Enabling Law, but then the states had to follow. States didn't want to do it because that again was a big ATM for state politicians, bureaucrats, clerks, inspectors, touts, everybody. And I can tell you many states did it quickly, but one state is a very good example that blocked it and delayed it almost forever. And that was a Congress-run state, UPA-run state. That was the state of Maharashtra. And you know why? Because it's the property value in Bombay and Pune that gives Maharashtra politicians so much wealth. So Congress's own government delayed it until it became impossible for them to do so, and they relented, they repealed it, and only when they repealed it that money for the Mumbai metro and other projects could then come in. So once again, look at these carefully, read the fine print, read this story. You can replay what I said again. This is good reform, and if the states carry out this reform, they will have a double benefit. One, with the reform, their own economics will improve and governance will improve. And second, they'll be able to borrow 4.28 lakh crores extra.